day 5 of our shelter at home. And I hope you're looking forward to this time with me as much as I look forward to being with you guys. I've heard some great feedback from people all over, from Sue in South Africa, and Leanna in Michigan, and Patty in Utah, and friends from right around here in Colorado. It's really nice to have a way to be able to be in touch with you guys. Wearing my fun 70s funky flower earrings today because they just make me happy. And in honor of flowers, my very first, I took a picture on my iPad for you. My very first crocus popped up in my yard along next to a dandelion that will be blooming soon, I'm sure. But they're a beautiful flower too. So, I like yellow. Today I want to talk about quilt backings. I just finished this quilt behind me. This is my funky chicken banana backing. And I know that it's very interesting, but it does have a story behind it. And tomorrow, just a little preview, tomorrow I am going to tell you guys, we're going to talk about quilts, quilt stories. Like a lot of quilts, we make quilts because maybe honor an event or a time in our life or a time in someone else's life that we want to make a quilt for them. So I went through a bunch of my quilts and gathered some up that have some really special meaning to me, and I'm going to share those with you guys tomorrow. But this one kind of kicked it off. This is a quilt that a friend made for me. But then she says, I made you a quilt, but you have to quilt it. Well, what else am I going to do? Of course, I'm going to quilt it. So it has a fun story. But first, I want to point out this little drawing in the center. In fact, I think I'm going to bring you guys up a little closer to it because it's just too stinking adorable. This is, I call it my banana chicken. But if you can see, it has a little name there. It says Gracie. That's my granddaughter. And she gave me this quilt, that quilt block for Christmas. It was a painting that she did at school, and then they had it transferred onto fabric. So I've been wondering what I'm going to do with it. Like maybe I want to make a pillow out of it or something. Somehow I knew that I wanted to use it in a special place. So when my friend Lori made this Christmas quilt for me and gave me banana fabric for the backing, I just knew that I had to put my banana chicken on that, on the back of this quilt. So I'm super excited. But I want to share a few things with you about how I did this. The backing fabric, I split it in half, as you can see, the seam right here. Then I cut a little section out of the center and then sewed that square into there and then sewed it all back into the backing. So I hope that inspires you to maybe think of some little different things that you can do with your quilt backings. You can make the back of your quilt as interesting and as fun as the front. Also, when we talk about piecing quilt backings, I don't know if you can notice the difference in the background color on this quilt. I had no idea when I pieced this till it was all done that this color actually has like a nap to it. Like the color looks a little different one direction than when you flip it around and go the other direction. So something to keep in mind is the nap of something, obviously like minky or something that has an actual nap where one way the kind of fur of it all goes one direction. But you can also have nap in color, or you can also have nap in print, like maybe the print is directional, the print all goes one way. Hi, Cindy. I see she's on there, jumped on, said hi. She's watching. I miss you. Okay, so, but real quick, a real quick tip I want to share with you, and then I'm going to show you some other fun backings. When you piece your backing fabric together, if you have a piece of fabric that does not have a nap, like this is just a little tiny print all over, I'm going to put it on the back of a quilt, and I have to sew two pieces together because they don't match. So one way that I like to do that, this is just a small piece to give you an example, but fold it in half that long way and start sewing these two pieces. Don't cut it yet, just fold it in half. Then start sewing, making your seam, And I always make it probably about at least 1.5 inches because I like to cut the selvages off. So sew your seam down, starting at the edges that you met up, then sew it all the way down to the fold. And the nice thing about that is, I don't know if you've ever sewn two pieces together and you get to the end and all of the sudden the bottom piece or the top piece is a little bit longer and you end up with it not as straight and you're like, oh, I guess I didn't cut it straight. So what it's really more about the way the fabric is kind of taken up as you sew, like more of it's gathered up on the back as you're stitching. So if you don't cut it, that will kind of move that, whatever, the fold will adjust as you get down to the end of it. And then you can take it, I usually fold it in half this way, and then use my ruler and rotary cut and cut that fold. Then open it up and you've got your back sewn together without the edges being off a little bit. So that's a little tip. Now I want to show you some other quilt backings, some kind of fun ways to make your back as interesting as the top. This one is a customer quilt that I'm going to be calling for her to come pick up, and it's darling. It's cute little strawberries. And she had it was a kit she bought, she said, and she had lots of pieces left over. And so she sewed them into strips and put it down the middle of her back. Super cute. So there's that one. This is one of my quilts, one of the patterns that I have made and is available on my website, donnasdesignthreads.com. This one's called Sparkler. And I had a couple extra blocks left over, and so I put them into the back. So that's a fun way to use it. This one, this is called cheater fabric because it looks like a quilt that's been pieced, but it's actually just printed on there. I call that cheater fabric, but it was so fun and I just loved it. This also is one of my quilts, one of the patterns I have. This one's called Let's Be Friends. And it's made with the friendship star. I love friendship stars. Okay, so I took a piece of that cheater fabric and sewed two pieces on the side. So there's a bigger piece and then there's a smaller piece. And the reason I wanted to show you this one is because if you have two different fabrics that you want to use on the back, instead of just sewing it down the middle and half of your quilt being one fabric and the other half of your quilt being a different fabric, then what I recommend is cutting one of the pieces cut it into 2/3 and a third piece, and then add the strip in the middle. So you've got a bigger piece on this end and a smaller piece on this end. In the art community, that's kind of called the rule of thirds, where it's just more pleasing to the eye to have something in thirds like this than to be just half one and half the other. It looks like, oh, they ran out of fabric, but this looks intentional. This looks like I meant to do it, which I did. But also the reason I don't put it right down the middle and make both these blue sides even is because when you load a quilt onto the long arm machine, it's really difficult to predict exactly where the middle is going to be as you're quilting from top to bottom or side to side. So that way it doesn't look like, oh, she tried to put that in the middle, but kind of missed. So that's a good suggestion on that end too. The other day, probably about a month or so ago, I did a blog on my website, again, donnasdesignthreads.com. And I talked all about fancy backs as well. And there's lots more pictures on there because I had a lot of other quilts that obviously now are been off to customers or I've given away or whatever. So there's a whole bunch of pictures if you want to see more interesting backings. And if you've done some really fun, cute backings, I'd love to see pictures. So that's it for today, you guys. Join me tomorrow and we will, again, like I said, talk about quilts and their stories. If you have any great quilt stories you want to share, I can share tomorrow. Send me a message. Bye, guys. Have a great day.